Everybody, it's been a little while. There's been a lot going on. It looks like COVID's kind of making another comeback. Um, and there's a lot of issues surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement. Um, so there's several things that have been very distressing, especially to Dr. Bones. Dr. Bones is really uh, very, very upset. He's says that a lot of people don't really understand what white privilege really is. So I thought that he and I have been talking, and I thought I would share with you some of the things and thoughts. Last night, my wife Marta is on Facebook. I'm not really on Facebook, but she received a video where somebody was quoting the great Ted Nugent about uh, people kneeling before the flag during the national anthem and how terrible that is. So um, he was he was ranting about all the people that have died during all of the wars for quote that flag. Um, well, let me just tell you something about Ted. Ted is a white man who was a great musician, and in the 60s, I think 67, 68, he registered for the draft and was initially a 1A, which means you're very highly likely to possibly get drafted. But he used his white privilege to get an education or school deferment. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't drafted for that reason. Then somehow in his military records, it just states that in 1971, he was then changed to 4F, which means you're somehow mentally or medically unfit for the draft or for service. So a man who is extraordinarily healthy and concerned about his health is 4F. Very interesting. But so in High Times, a magazine in 1977, he said that he faked and did a lot of stuff and made himself really dirty and sick and did things he didn't normally do because of his normal lifestyle and adherence to healthy practices. And when he went, he was basically physically unfit. And he made that claim in 77. But then later on, I can't remember, sometime in the 80s or 90s, he said that was a total lie. That was not true. That's not what he did. And he had some other reason for being a 4F and not having to go to the service. So he's very similar to our president, who used his white privilege to have bone spurs keep him out of the service. So what happened is that in Vietnam, over 20% of the servicemen and people who died in Vietnam were black. That's certainly far greater than the general population of the United States, of the number of blacks in the general population. So when they didn't go, poor blacks went in their place. So let's talk a little bit about black history in terms of service to our country. It's widely believed that the first person to have been killed, the massacre, the Boston Massacre, would have been a black, Crispus, I think his name was Attucks. And blacks did help to try to fight in the Revolutionary War. They fought in every other war, the Civil War, and in hopes that they would be given freedoms. After the Civil War, when the South lost, the traitors were defeated, and the troops came in and allowed blacks to be free to vote, run for office, and there were black congressmen, senators, governors. That all occurred until that all ended in the 1880s. The troops left, Jim Crow laws were initiated, and blacks were relegated to second-class citizens. And you kind of know how they were treated with Jim Crow laws and segregation and all of that. So World War I rolls around, and they enlist and fight bravely in hopes that they're fighting for freedom for our country overseas and to liberate Europe from the tyranny of the German, Prussian, and Austrian forces. When they came back, they didn't have the freedom they thought they would get. Nothing changed in terms of the Jim Crow laws. So in World War II, they fought valiantly. You've heard about the Tuskegee Airmen and how valiantly they tried to join the military, even though it was segregated until right after World War II. But they did demonstrate how valiantly they fought, because after that, Truman desegregated the military. And they were hoping to come back and enjoy all the benefits of the GIs, of the GI Bill, and all of that. Well, unfortunately, part of like the housing and buying houses and getting loans to do things like that, living in a black community, you were certain areas were, quote, redlined as being high risk for loans and weren't readily approved by government bureaucrats. So blacks did not get the same opportunity that whites did when they came back from World War II, the Korean War. They were left out. So a disproportionate number of blacks died in Vietnam. So let's talk about a very famous black person who decided not to go. Now let me just say, Ted Nugent has never admitted that he opposed the Vietnam War and didn't go because he was opposed to it, and that he apologizes that blacks died in his place. Probably a little bit more respect for him if he did. But Muhammad Ali was a Muslim, and believe it or not, Muslim religion teaches peace. And he wanted to become a conscientious objector. He didn't do anything to try to be 4F, didn't go to Canada. He had his title stripped from him, and he went to jail in opposition to the Vietnam War. So let's see, Ted Nugent played guitar, made millions of dollars, and stayed out of the military because he wanted to make money with his music. Muhammad Ali went to jail and lost everything that he had fought for all of his life. Kind of describes white privilege to me. So I think when you understand why blacks kneel during the national anthem, you look at their side of this whole story. Perhaps you'll understand better as to why they kneel, why they don't have as much respect for the flag as whites do. Because they have died with honor fighting for our country, given up a lot of their blood. But unfortunately, their blood was given up so white people could stay at home and get rich. It's time for that to stop. And people don't like it, but it needs to stop. In fact, it really makes me almost want to cry when I think about that type of what we've done over the years. It's not a very good legacy. Oh, by the way, monuments to the Confederates went up during the 1880s when they were trying blacks, quote, their place. More monuments went up in the 50s during desegregation. So the history needs to really be taught about those monuments. They were being used to keep blacks, quote, in their place, not to honor former white supremacist traitors. I'll leave you with that thought.